So this panel is called Getting Real on the Road to Digital. And it's really about understanding how digital is transforming the end-to-end business model. We hear a lot about how digital transforms at the front end, how customer experience is quickly becoming the new currency in this, as Jonathan, articulated this new digital revolution that we're going through. But it's about end-to-end. It affects every part of business. And so to help me tell this story, I have two leaders in business that I'm going to invite up onto the stage to join me for this session. The first person I'd love to invite up is my own Chief Marketing Officer, Maggie Chan-Jones. Maggie.
Go. All right.
There
Thanks,
you go,
Jamie.
take your seat. And the next women leader that I have to bring on stage with us today is Nadia Malek, the Senior Director for Global Supply Chain at Cirque du Soleil. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. So I'm going to take a seat. I've got some notes. I'm going to take some notes. I'm going to keep this highly interactive today. So I think the best way to start is to ask you ladies to introduce yourself. Maggie.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here at CeBIT. I'm Maggie Chan-Jones, Chief Marketing Officer at SAP. I am a 19-year veteran in the technology sector and also a career marketer. Being the CMO of SAP, my job and my team's job is really to focusing on how do we inspire desire, creating demand, and to drive growth through storytelling, and also through the co-innovations that we have with our partner ecosystems and customers like Cirque du Soleil as well.
Excellent, and I'm going to come back to some of those points later. Nadia.
Yes, hi, I'm Nadia, and I buy stuff. Basically, I buy stuff. We buy lodging, labor, logistics. We buy sound stage lights. We buy raw material. I mean, the famous fake monkey hair. We buy yak hair, feathers, buttons, you name it, we buy it. And so I spend a lot of time in procurement. I have a team that's responsible for customs compliance worldwide, travel management, strategic sourcing, procurement, and finally procurement projects and support, which is the technology arm of our supply chain. And I work probably for one of the best companies in the world, at least one of the most creative ones, Cirque du Soleil. Cirque has been in business for over has reached audiences of over 160 million people. And it has been in 400 cities, 5 continents, you name it, we've been there. And an interesting fact, we are in Hanover. And I don't know about you, but I used to like the Scorpions when I was a kid, and I still do. So the Scorpions actually come from Hanover. And I Googled who had sold more tickets, Cirque du Soleil or the Scorpions. It's not on Google. I know that they've sold 100 million records. So if anybody knows, actually, let me ask you a question. Who has seen a Cirque du Soleil show in the audience? Okay. Who has seen a Scorpions concert? We win. So I could go on about Cirque for ages, but I guess the best way to show you Cirque is not to talk about it, but to show you. So if you don't mind, we'll run
Beautiful.
a short clip, and you will get a feel for what Cirque du Soleil is. If not, we'll do actually juggling acts up here.
Wow.
That's
Well,
it.
I think that's amazing, right? Seriously.
It's really good. Awesome.
Visually stunning, and I made some notes there. One of them is, I want to go on a shopping trip with you.
Oh.
Okay. So one of the things, you talked about the scorpions, and every time I hear the scorpions, I think wind of change,
Yep.
right? There's a wind of change blowing through. See what I'm doing here? There's a wind of change blowing through, and it's digital. It's digital that's making that change happen. So this is a discussion about getting real. So what are the biggest lessons learnt about leading your team through this kind of digital era? How do you start? Because that's one of the things I think the audience would love to know. How do you keep them engaged?
Me first?
Yes,
Okay.
Nadia, yeah.
I find it really interesting, and I'm happy to be here with our partners we don't say partners in crime, but partners in entertainment, SAP. It's a pleasure to be here. I find it interesting that I'm sitting at a tech conference, to be honest with you. When you think of Cirque du Soleil, you do not think, you think high bars, high flying, you know, trapeze and a lot of things up in the air. You don't think high tech. But you would be surprised. There is so much technologies in our shows. If you go see Michael Jackson, for example, there's a 3D hologram of Michael Jackson dancing on stage with the Cirque dancers. And I'm sorry if I spoil it for anybody, but it actually is. He looks like he's there. If you go see Love, the Beatles, my God, there's 6,000 high-tech speakers right there that just brings the sound to a whole new level. Avatar, our new show, we've developed a show with James Cameron called Cirque Avatar, and you've had the pleasure to see it.
I know.
We're using 3D projections. You talk about visually stunning, it changes the environment like this, in a heartbeat. And the new thing with Avatar that we've done, actually it's with SAP, it's an application. So now people are going in and they're actually part of the show. We're creating an immersive experience so that people, when they go into the show, they're actually part of the show. So it really, we do use a lot of tech. The greatest technology that we use is the human body and soul, though. I have to say that at Cirque, you know, I've walked around, I've seen all the technology. The human body still remains to me. When you see a show, you'll understand why. So that's our biggest thing. It's what drives our creation, and it really drives your imagination when you're sitting in there. So we do use a lot of tech. I'll give you my perspective from a supply chain, and like I said, I'm not a techie, so I work in procurement for the last 20-some years. I believe in technology. I love it. I implement it wherever I've been. I work a lot with technology, and I think companies need it to keep going, to advance their business, and to stay on the cutting edge. And now I'll be honest with you guys. Not automating or digitizing the back offices like procurement and finance, not necessarily the top priority of your executives, okay? Let's face it. It's not as sexy as CRM, or it's not as cool as developing a new show, so that priority, putting it on the priority list, was kind of difficult. So what did we do? We started with policies and procedures. Riveting subject, I know. People love it. But that's how we started our road to technology, because we went to management and we went to the senior executives and we said, we want to change the procurement policy. Here's what we want to do, more RFPs, more RFQs, this is how we're going to source. And from a business standpoint, we kind of laid out the vision of where we wanted to take procurement. And from there, they signed off on the policy. And everybody, all the executives, saw the vision, made sense, and they signed off. And then we went back. And then we said, now that we have this business vision, this is what we want to do, we need the technology to support it. So for us, for me in supply chain, it really started as a key enabler. And once they've signed off on the policy and you explain why you want, for me, an electronic catalog, I'm all happy about it. For our president, he's like, what? What are you talking about? And so we told him the vision, and it really sold that way. So it's talking the language of your executives.
Yeah.
That's really, really important. And tell me when to stop, because I can...
Excellent. No, listen, that's great. You're making my job really easy, so that's good. One thing I was going to say, well, a couple of things. I think, I've been in CRM for 20 years, so thank you for describing it as sexy. I like that. Maggie, we talk a lot about customer engagement in our business, but talk to me about engaging teams at SAP as CMO, because in a similar way, whether you're coming from the back office or the front, it still means engaging a lot of teams. It means engaging executives. Talk to me about doing that as the CMO of SAP.
Yeah, Jamie, I would say there are three things that I think about. One is really setting the objectives right? What are the outcomes that we are trying to drive? And adding to Nadia, your example of Cirque, the new show with the avatar. I mean, it was such an amazing experience in working between SAP and Cirque du Soleil, and thinking about that experience, starting from the beginning on what the consumer, what are the fans wanting to see, and how is technology going to help, is so critical. And so setting the objectives on mapping out what the outcomes that we are trying to drive, then that would determine everything else on what we need to do. Second is the collaboration. The world is getting a lot more intimate, and thanks to technology, we can all collaborate. And I was walking out here, and I was thinking, wow, we have a Scottish, we have a Chinese American, we have a French Canadian, all sitting together and talking about this important topic of digital transformation. So, when I look at our collaboration internally at SAP, it's also very global. And my leadership team is spread across the world. So getting that collaboration with our stakeholders, getting collaboration across the team, focusing on the objectives are very critical for us. And then third is what I love about what we can do today in marketing is being very data-driven. We use data-driven decision-making process. So I always tell the marketing team that we are part artists and part scientists. Because we need the facts, we need the data-driven mentality to help us bring the creativity out into the marketplace.
Absolutely. And Nadia, from your perspective, once you get your team engaged with exec leadership, and you sort of alluded to this, supply chain's not necessarily, digitizing that's not necessarily the first thing that comes to mind. So how do you show ROI in that context? How do you keep the execs engaged the whole way through?
I like to call in internal audits, as odd as that may seem. Internal audits are great. You call them in, they come and audit your processes, and they actually give you recommendations on how you should be doing something better. So that's definitely one way, because you can use those recommendations in your business cases. We work a lot with ROIs. I'm an accountant by trade, and so I like the ROIs. We work two ways. I guess one is every software supplier will come and tell you you're going to save 20% here, 5% here, 17% here. At one point, they should be paying me to run these softwares, right? So I work very closely with my friends at SAP, and I say, you're going to sell me something, that's fine. You're not going away after, you're staying here. What are the metrics that I'm going to use to show the value that I've put in my ROI? So I think that the ROIs need to be conservative. From my standpoint, I'll let the risk takers for the acrobats. I think that your ROIs need to be real, and you need to measure them after the fact. If you do that, once you've done that, if you go back to the executive and you say, look, I asked you for this was the ROI presented, and I delivered this much. Your next ROI with the metrics is a lot more credible to sell. So, and keep the finance people close. So you keep your suppliers close and you work in partnership. They know your business, it's important. And you keep your finance people close, because the finance people, at the end of the day, these investments are huge dollars and it will go back through finance. So I like to have them validated through our people. And I have to say, finally, don't give up. Don't give up. I do my ROIs, we're conservative, we work them, we work with SAP, we do a lot of stuff. And I went to I'll give you an example, I went to the executive board about 18 months ago, and I had a good ROI, I had a good story to tell, and it was a good project, and everybody agreed. And it did not get funded. And I kind of came out of there a bit disappointed and realized that at the end of the day, it had nothing to do with my project. It was external factors affecting us. It was funds that were being allocated to another project. And therefore, if you believe in what you do and you find the value, go back. Went back 6 months later, 12 months later, because an ROI is numbers, right? At that point, it's estimate and analysis of predictions of what you think you're going to do. So if you believe in it, I say go back. Don't give up. That's very important.
So a supplemental question to that, because I'm just trying to take in. Jonathan spoke about the digital revolution being it will be as spoken about as the industrial revolution. But revolution for me always it has images of like a big bang approach. It's like boom and we change. Is it big bang or step by step when you talk about supply chain?
Somebody once told me, Nadia, don't try to boil the ocean. And I like that analogy. I don't like the boiling the ocean approach. you know, when we decided our supply chain, we did a technology roadmap. I believe in having the long-term vision, definitely. And it wasn't with tons of consultants and very expensive. We sat down with colleagues, and I have a great team that works with me, and we sat down and says, where do we want to go? And we kind of drew up the technology roadmap and determined the pros and cons of all the modules. But the deployment is being done module by module for a couple of reasons. Change management is huge, right? You want to talk about team engagement. So if people wait 2 years to go big bang, you know, sometimes you kind of lose them along the way. Risk management, again, as an accountant, I don't like risk, so budget and timelines are more manageable for me on a smaller scope. You know, you want to get success. If you're doing smaller success, people are really excited. They see the results of what they've been put up to, and they really get into it, and you go, okay, you're ready for the next. And finally, I think that I want people to have time to play with the software. You know, our functionalities of software, they're so huge. We probably use, 20, 30% of our iPhone. Well, maybe not this crowd. I'm talking to a more technical crowd. Maybe you guys use 92.6% of the iPhone capabilities. But most of us don't use that much of the capabilities. So give people the time to play so that they can want to go on to the next module. So I'm really more of a step-by-step approach. But it depends on your company. It depends on your environment. So.
Excellent. Well, I've got a question for both of you. I'm going to come to Maggie first on this next one. So we're at a technology conference. So no panel at a technology conference is complete without a mention of how we use technology to run our own lines of business. So Maggie, coming to you first, how are you using technology today to manage this kind of change and run marketing?
Yeah. So at SAP, we drink our own champagne. We use our own software. So in marketing specifically, you know, just thinking about the digital experience that we have that is building on SAP HANA. And what SAP HANA is allowing us to do is to really distill a massive amount of data to help us to make smarter decisions. So when you run what we call a live business, meaning that you can truly get the agility, getting the instant control, and those are the pieces that are important for digital business today. And so as another example, you know, talking about revolutionary or evolutionary, I think there are certain areas that has to be evolutionary. You know, thinking about this conference at CeBIT, as an example, at our booth in Hall 4, we talk about the heat mapping. You know, using camera, using sensor-based technology, we can actually count number of people that were at our booth and what are some of the patterns that we see, what areas are more popular and what areas are not, and therefore we can correlate with the content that we have and figure out how do we continue to improve our customer experience. Now, that to me is evolutionary because that is a way to continue to help us to improve customer experience. Another example we use working together very closely with sales is social selling. Yeah. We know social media is pervasive, and using your own network to create new opportunities, create new relationships is a lot easier than cold calling someone. So by using that kind of connection, using that kind of network, we're able to also identify opportunities and finding out a better ROI in terms of the connection between sales and also prospects as well. And coming to another area that when I go around the world talking to CMOs, what I hear from across different industry is, how do I get one view of the customer? How do I get that 360-degree view of the customer? Now, one of the things that I hear also is, when they're using different type of software from different best-of-breed providers, the data is not connected. The system don't talk to each other. So even though you may think you're running real-time servers, running real-time software, but somehow everything still takes weeks. And that's why you need an end-to-end plan and a provider who can help you to think about that end-to-end solution so that your data is connecting to, you know, what Nadia talking about, the back end. So when I, as a CMO or, you know, consumer business or entertainment business, if I want to run a promotion, I want to make sure in the back end I have the capacity to fulfill those type of requirements. Because if I don't have something to sell, there's no point of running a promotion. So those are the connections that are very important.
Perfect. And the same question for you, Nadia. How is this technology underpinning your line of business today?
Well, we talked a bit about, we use it in our shows, and I can talk a bit more about how we use it on the back end. We use Concur for travel and expense. We use SuccessFactors for HR. We use SAP as the backbone. We use Ariba for sourcing. So yes, I know they're all SAP modules. So, so I guess our companies had the initial same vision. Some of them we procured before, some after. But it's great because we do get that integration. They're working at integrating. The reporting system is fabulous. From a technology standpoint, our IT folks really are going towards the cloud now. And they love that. And that's the extent of my technological knowledge. But they really want to go, we work a lot, I'm kidding, but we work a lot with IT. They really want to go towards the cloud for different reasons, making it easier to implement, faster deployment, less resources on site to be able to do that, more flexible, less maintenance afterwards, and all the great things you guys know about the cloud and the pay-as-you-go model. Now, from a procurement standpoint, I can debate the pay-as-you-go with a few vendors, but it's supposed to be pay-as-you-go model. And so we're using a lot of that. Another thing for Cirque that is key is mobility and user-friendliness. As you can imagine, we set up big top tents in a parking lot anywhere in the world, and people don't have access to their desktop or their laptop, so it needs to be mobile. So like for Concur, for example, with the travel expense, people don't need to be hooked up to finish their travel expense, and if they're submitting their HR or their evaluation report for the year, they don't need to be connected. So mobility is key. And we have about 25 different nationalities and 50 languages spoken at Cirque. And that could be almost on one show only. So user-friendliness is a must. You cannot have to train somebody for 3 months right now, these days, to be able to use a software. I remember in the old days, they used to give you weeks and weeks of training. It can't be like that anymore, and especially for us being all over the world. I always say we have multiple divisions, and they keep moving on us, so we cannot set up shop in one place. So for us, user-friendliness and the cloud and really mobility are the key factors we look at right now when we're going into new technologies.
And I would actually add that as a technology company, as surprising as it may seem, the first thing we talk about is not about technology. Yeah. It's about business outcome that the company, our customers want to drive. And what we use is a design thinking methodology that we've been using for years on how do we help customers to really articulate where do they want to go in the future, how do they want to reimagine their business or processes. And then from there on, then we can figure it out what technologies are the right technologies to use.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Well, what I'm going to try and do is give you an opportunity to sort of wrap up with final thoughts. So a couple of things that are going through my mind. There was a lot of information, I think, great information for the audience to take on board. Where do we go from here? And if you were to summarize, what are your sort of final words? How would you do that? I'll come to you first, Nadia.
I don't think there's a finality. Walking around here yesterday, seeing robots and the technology evolving left and right, I don't think there's a final road. I think from my standpoint, from supply chain, and it's really about continuing our evolution. So we've designed the technology roadmap, and there's so much more to be done. There's also the organizational structure. Technology supports a new structure that we can work better with now. So having the technology, we can have, commodity structures with buyers being around the world, and they don't have to be co-located to work together. So for us, it's very important. How do you make sure that if you've contracted a supplier, that people around the world can buy off the catalog, and that when the invoice comes in Montreal, it can be paid according to the contracted price. So all that link, the P2P, what we call in our world, the purchase requisition to payment, really needs to be finished at Cirque. We're not there yet, like I said. And the more we get ahead, the more I feel that the technology is going ahead too, so we'll keep running after it. As a wrap-up, I think for back-end systems, not for front, but for back-end, I think you have to use that technology as an enabler. You have to have your executives understand your business vision to go forward, and then use the technology to help you through it. We enjoy working with SAP because they do bring that value engineering to us, and they know the software, and then they know your business, and they can tell you where you can get, I'll use the biggest bang for the buck expression, where you can get the most value out of which module. So work with them, and know your market. Know what's going on is extremely important. And finally, I think for me, is having fun. Be passionate about what you do. If you love technology and you love your department, keep going. Don't give up, and that's it. It's constantly moving. So
Excellent. No, thank you for that. So Maggie, coming to you, where do we go from here, and what would be your final words?
I think for technology sector, like what Nadia talked about is, I love technology sector because it's so much fun. Like there's always evolving, there are always new innovations that we can look at. The most important thing is really about how do you think about the business outcome that you're trying to drive. Then therefore, how do we imagine that business model? I love the Avatar show because the Turok show, because when you go to a show, people would tell you, you'll hear the announcer saying, okay, the show is about to begin, please turn off your mobile phone. Very differently in this show, they would say, the show is about to begin, please turn on your mobile phone. And you would actually, using your mobile app, you would be actually being part of the show, and that is so cool. Yeah. And the co-innovation that I see more and more between partners, between customers, are gonna be another key area of innovations that's gonna take place. I would say starting with processes, technology, and also people. Yeah. Because one of the key things that I hear from customers around the world is, we have a great vision, we have a great execution plan, but we don't have the skilled people and experts to really bring that vision to life. So how do you skill your employees to make sure they are digital ready is going to be the next biggest challenge.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to attempt to summarize here as best that I can. By the way, I hope that we can take this story a bit deeper at maybe Sapphire, Maggie and May. I'm loving the digitization of the supply chain because I love the whole story. I think the end-to-end is amazing. I think it tells the live business's simple message. I think simplifying that down is phenomenal. So I wrote down the convergence of physical and digital experiences. I think that the whole way through, from customer to supply chain, is absolutely essential. I think the user experience part is so important because from what you said as well, Maggie, it's like skills, not just from a technical perspective, but front of house supporting, huge productions and things is absolutely essential. So I kind of would summarize it like this. I think in the digital age, we need to be agile, we need to be flexible, and we need to be everywhere. And collaboration and innovation with business partners, essential in making it happen. And I've written, digital transformation is a journey, not a destination. We need to continually evolve. Is that okay? Did I do okay?
You did awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Fun. Yeah.
You forgot have fun.
And have fun, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I've had fun, guys. I hope you have. Thank you very much for coming and listening to the panel. The panelists, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.